Well, shit. We got a bad motor. Cylinder number 3 is toast. Alright, welcome back to episode 3 of the R18 engine build. On this episode, we are going to be doing a engine leak down test in order to figure out whether or not there's some internal engine damage. Now, a leak down test can give you information on the valves, both the intake and exhaust, as well as the piston rings. And again, if you have bad leak down results, it can mean there's a lot of problems inside that internal engine that really needs attention, or possibly it is beyond repair. So ideally, I would love to do a compression test on this motor. However, since there's no flywheel and no starter attached, we are not able to even do that, right? I can't jump the starter to turn the motor over. Doing the leak down test is going to be a softer approach because we still get a lot of information on the condition of the engine without necessarily having to crank it over and over and over. To do a leak down test, it's not quite hard, but you need the right tools. You need a leak down tester tool, and we picked one up from Amazon way back when we were doing the Turbo Civic. So to start off with the leak down test, you're going to need a leak down tester and an air compressor to make this work. Once you got the leak down tester set to 0 leak down, you're gonna connect it into the piece of hose that's already connected to the cylinders. According to the study, 20% leak down is still acceptable, and that means it's still a good motor. Obviously, the less leak down you have, the better. And anything beyond 20, 30, 40% means that there's something pretty wrong inside the engine. All right, cylinder number 1. Right there, we got 100 on the gauge. We're on top dead center on the compression stroke. And we're pretty good. Leak down is, I don't know, 10%? Yeah, roughly at 10%, which is a low leak down score. Pretty happy with that. So based on the instructions here, it says a cylinder that is not leaking will read approximately 20% in the green band. So not bad. Cylinder 1 leak down test. We are roughly at like 16, 17 leak down on cylinder 1. As I turn the engine over a few times, maybe it's getting a little bit of lubrication or whatnot, but this is about the 4th or 5th time I'm checking it, and it's actually getting better. So we're at about 14, 15 leak down right now on cylinder 1. And yeah, I'm pretty confident in that. We're gonna keep going. Cylinder number 2. About 10% leak down. Cylinder 2. Now cylinder 2 showing about 7% leak down. 3rd time, cylinder 2, about 10%. Cylinder number 2, cylinder number 2. Alright, so after multiple tests right now on cylinder 2, I don't know, it's super weird because I'm doing everything the same. We are seeing 30% leak down now, whereas before you only saw what you saw. And I'm at top dead center. So either something is preventing the valves to open up or close fully, you know, dirt, grime, whatever. Cylinder 2 is leaking. You can kind of see some air hissing through there. There is a lot of dirt, and I'm assuming this is the reason why the valves aren't seating all the way. So I actually took an air compressor hose. I cranked the motor to be on the intake stroke on cylinder 2, and with a compressor I just blew a bunch of air on the valves, and I'm telling you, we were reading 35%, probably because some dirt or grime got stuck in the valve seat and it wasn't fully seating. But now that we kind of blew that off, our numbers are more consistent to what they were previously. We're probably at like 16, 17 leak down right now, so that's looking better. And again, I'm not sure how consistent and accurate these gauges are, but as long as we're below 20, I'm cool with it. One last test on cylinder 2. And roughly 22. Interesting. Cylinder 3 looks like about 16%. Yep, cylinder 3 pretty consistent, 15-16%. So right now we're in top dead center. How to check if you're not in top dead center? I'm gonna turn over the crank right now, and you'll see once those valves start opening up, you see the leak down test. It's gonna start moving. Look at that. As the valves are open, we're showing a lot of leak down now. But if we're gonna turn it back over, oh, that's cool. Cylinder 4. %. Compressor's fully charged. Cylinder 4. Yeah, about 5-6% leak down. So overall, cylinder 1 leak down test was acceptable. Then we moved on to cylinder 2. Cylinder 2 initially gave us good results, but once we kept retesting cylinder 2, it started getting worse, up to 30% leak down, which left me kind of odd and not knowing why is this happening. First impression was because we moved the rods and the pistons through all the deposits of rust deposits towards the top of the cylinder. Maybe did it break a piston ring or something of that nature. But then what I did is, after taking the compressor and some compressed air, blowing the valves out, it looked like the compression got back to normal, and the leak down test once again was pretty normal, which is a good sign. Again, there's a lot of dirt and debris in this motor since it's had so long. Going into cylinder number 3, results were good. Cylinder number 4 was probably the strongest cylinder, which I could even feel once I was turning the pulley over. I could feel the compression building up from cylinder number 4. So cylinder 4, nice and healthy. And what I could do right now is I'm gonna overlay the results when I did the leak down test on my Civic with a running R18. I just want to compare, now that it's been a year plus since I've done those leak down numbers on my Civic. I want to compare them with these. So let's take a look at them right now. We're still looking good. 5% on the leak down test. Try it again here. Still looks good. I'm gonna take the cap off. No bubbles here, no bubbles whatsoever. All right, cylinder 2 leak down. All right, not bad. What do we got? Like 7-8% leak down. All right, cylinder 4 leak down, just about 5-6%. Go 6 psi. Cylinder 1 valves are good, 7 psi leak down. Cylinder 2 valves are good, 7 psi leak down. 3 valves are good, 8 psi, just about the same. 4, the valves were a little too tight, just a hair. 6-7 psi leak down. So leak down test pretty much can confirm the valves are seating properly, they're not leaking excessively. And I'm pretty sure I'm doing this test right, because I did it before. I had some people saying you can't do a leak down test properly if all your spark plugs are out. Well, I tested this leak down test with all the spark plugs out and all the spark plugs in, aside from the cylinder I am testing, and I'm getting consistent and the same results. So after I ran through all the cylinders and got the results, I decided to do one last test run. So overall, here are going to be the results on average for these cylinders 1 through 4, and you let me know if that's an acceptable range. Again, the tool I was using, it's an eBay tool. I'm not sure on the accuracy of it, but the fact that it's still in the green is pretty good sign without even refreshing this engine. It's just in the condition it was left so many years ago. Alright, so now that we had the leak down tests back and we confirmed all the numbers, I still want to address the cylinders. You know, in episode 1, when we took the boroscope inside the engine, you could see that there is some rust deposits and stuff in the engine. And what I wanted to do now, since we got the results, is throw a little concoction inside the cylinders. So I've created the perfect mixture right over here, and we're gonna throw it into the cylinders. You know, the cylinders are dirty, a little bit of rust on them, and we want to clean them out and lubricate them, because again, we don't know how long this engine has been sitting for. So right over here, I have a little bit of Marvel Mystery Oil. Everyone that's an OG knows Marvel Mystery Oil. We got some automatic transmission fluid mixed in here, and some 020 full synthetic. I went with the thin oil just because this engine's going to be sitting here. It's not going to be warming up, so I'm hoping that the thinner oil will be able to seep through the pistons into the sump easier. And you might be asking yourself, why the automatic transmission fluid? Well, because automatic transmission fluid is an excellent cleaner, so we're trying to lube up, clean up a little bit with this mixture. So I got a syringe here. We're going to be throwing a good size to each cylinder. I'm going to measure it out, probably 30 to 40 ml of fluid in each cylinder to really coat it, as this engine's probably going to be sitting still without opening it, in hopes that this really helps lube up and clean up the cylinders a little bit. Here we go. It's a little bit too much. I'm gonna do 30 cc's per cylinder. That looks like a good amount. And the reason we put the oil, transmission fluid, and the Marvel Mystery Oil in the cylinders is just to lubricate it and coat it and try to get rid of some of the deposits that have been caked on on the piston and on the cylinders, and I'm hoping I'm gonna be turning the motor every couple of days. I'm just gonna be cranking it over a few times so that oil and the lubrication and the cleaning take effect over the course of a week or two, and hopefully that gives us just positive results. So we filled all that up with oil, and now you can actually see some of the exhaust valves and the intake valves soaking as well, which is good because again, it'll help with the lubrication and maybe the sealing of the valves at this point in time. Also, one thing we noticed is when we were moving the engine around and turning the pulley for the water pump, we noticed some coolant come out of the engine, and the coolant was a nice orange colored coolant. Well, granted, it's not the original Honda coolant. It definitely wasn't milky, so that's a great sign. The oil from the dipstick when I pulled it looked full originally and pretty clean. As you guys saw, the valve train from episode 1 looked phenomenal. So there's no contamination between oil and coolant inside this engine as far as I could tell. The cooling system has its own orange coolant, and the oil again is oil colored. So we're gonna be looking into that further when we drain the oil from this motor and start taking it apart. But for now, I think the results speak for themselves that this motor's pretty decent condition. And I was looking back after episode 1 about boring and honing the cylinder walls, and I think a cylinder hone is definitely going to be needed if that oil and automatic transmission fluid can't clean out those rust spots in the cylinders. We might have to do a hone once we take the motor apart. Now, I thought about boring it, but boring it is actually taking out quite a bit of material and upsizing the pistons. Once you bore a cylinder, let's say I think these are 81 millimeter pistons, if you bore it out 1,000 or 2,000 of an inch, not only do you narrow the cylinder bores and the sleeves to be smaller and thinner, which is not good, it can be more prone to cracking, you're also going to have to upsize your piston rings. So you're going to go from an 81 millimeter piston to 82 or 83. And I'm not even sure how common it is to find upgradable pistons that are bigger bore in the R18 world. I'm pretty sure you don't have that option. So if honing won't work, we're gonna be looking at alternative options, but it's probably limited at this point. Well, I thank you guys for watching episode 3. If you liked the video, like, share, subscribe, write a comment. We're raising some funds for this build, so if you'd like to donate down below or buy some of my merch, so you can go ahead on bigcartel.bullykid and pick yourself up a prescription shirt. Alright guys, appreciate it. See you on the next video.
I ain't here for the money, I ain't here